I never thought I will be a United Nations Special Rapporteur. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to present to the Human Rights Council my latest report on the human rights situation in the Russian Federation. Over the past year, we have seen an alarming trajectory, widening discrimination, the consolidation of authoritarian rule, and intensifying repression.
You know, we as women have been excluded from peace negotiations forever. 98% are women and children, are the refugees and the victims of war, any war in the world. But then for the peace talks, it's only men, it's the same men that started the war that are discussing the peace. And this is why probably peace talks never last. I was growing up in communist Bulgaria, and I wasn't accepted in the English high school, which was for privileged kids from the Politburo, but I was accepted into the Russian high school, which I was very unhappy because my first choice was the English high school. When John Lennon was killed, I wrote a poem because I was trying to write poetry at that time. It was about peace, and it was how sad it was, metaphorical. I went with other teenagers in the center of Sofia, and I read my poem at a gathering, and we listened to the Beatles' music and to John Lennon's music, Imagine. I was punished for that because some members of the Communist Committee, of the Komsomol Committee in Sofia, were kind of looking for students that were gathering. They wanted to take me out of the Komsomol organization, the Young Communist League, which meant I cannot go to university, I cannot have a career, nothing.
The authorities are deliberately using the law, the judiciary, and law enforcement institutions as a political weapon to suppress civil and political rights and freedoms.
And they accused me in front of my parents that I have been spreading bourgeois propaganda. So that was the first awakening that something is wrong with that system. And I was 16 or 17 years old. Some journalists were confidentially trying to set up since 1988 an opposition newspaper in Bulgaria, anti-communist. We set it up in 1989, and the Berlin Wall fell. We worked for free in the beginning. I'm very proud of this because it was this huge aspiration of democracy, human rights. I ended up in the United States in 1990, and I'm the first Bulgarian who went to Columbia Journalism School, which I'm very proud to this day. It was set up by Joseph Pulitzer from Eastern Europe, from Hungary, where the Pulitzer Prize is given.
I was in Bosnia, in Sarajevo, during the Serbian army was bombarding the city. And I was in this multicultural Sarajevo, which in one square had a synagogue, a Catholic cathedral, an Orthodox church, and a Muslim mosque. So people were totally egalitarian and respecting all religions. And they were suffering this horrible war. So I was documenting the atrocities there, but also trying to build the War Crimes Tribunal.
My important milestone is my work at Amnesty International over close to 10 years. was a dream to work for Amnesty. So I won a competition and I moved from New York to London and I became the Russia researcher. This was the time when the first Chechen war was happening, and then the second Chechen war. I was leading the team of Amnesty researchers, investigators. I remember one important thing for me was researching and writing the first report on torture in Russia in 1997. The little I knew that in 2024, as a special rapporteur on Russia, I would write another report with the same focus on torture in the Russian Federation. I would never forget interviewing a dozen of Chechen women who've been gang raped by Russian soldiers. How did I keep myself? I'm sure I've been traumatized. I remember visiting Russia's offices of the police, and I remember seeing next to the desk of a police officer a gas mask. With my knowledge, I knew that a gas mask is used to torture people through a specific torture method called little elephant. And little elephant torture is when you stop the oxygen of the person, of the victim, and this is how you suffocate them. I think it's a way of saying it's a total impunity. We're above the law.
Torture remains systematic and widespread, with 258 cases documented alone in 24-25, including the use of punitive psychiatry as a political tool. By May 25, at least 206 Ukrainian prisoners of war had died in Russian captivity, their bodies showing signs of torture, such as the body of 27-year-old Ukrainian investigative journalist and human rights defender Victoria Roshina, who was killed in Russian detention. In public testimony before the military court in Rostov-on-Don, civilian detainee Natalia Vlasova described being subjected to electric shocks and gang raped repeatedly by 15 armed men, followed by the use of a metal file to file her teeth down.
I came for Brussels for meetings with the European institutions, for speaking to members of parliament, and to attend an anti-war congress gathering anti-war activists from the Russian Federation, Ukrainian civil society, and we're having a joint event. I'm supporting the Russian and Ukrainian civil society in their campaign called People First. This is a campaign demanding the release of all Russian political prisoners and the Ukrainian detainees in Russia, the thousands of them deported from Ukraine and now currently in Russian prisons. And this as a precondition for lasting peace.
We also plan to discuss this important topic at this conference. For us, it is very...
And in my country, Bulgaria, they say it often, before sunrise is the darkest time, but sunrise will come for sure. So we're in the darkest time, but let's look at the light and build it.
Вы вообще такой харизматичный человек. Я думаю, это большая удача, что вы стали нашим рапортером.
Спасибо, это дорого стоит, такие слова.
Я слежу за вами.
Ambassador, I'm the Special Rapporteur on Russia.
Oh, nice to meet
Mariana Katzarova, the new Ukrainian ambassador.
you. Oh, really?
Have you met him?
No, not yet. No.
Can I take the liberty to introduce the Czech ambassador, who I was meeting to the new
A lot about
Ukrainian
you.
ambassador.
Oh, really? Yeah, really.
And former president of the Human Rights Council, who appointed the first rapporteur on Russia.
Yes.
Last year, I did a special project. I interviewed a group of torture victims, LGBT people from Chechnya, men and women, who came specifically to speak to me, to give their testimonies, to provide me with, any medical evidence of what they suffered at the hands of the Chechen police and Chechen military. They've been gang raped, they've been tortured with electric shocks. I do the same with returned Ukrainian detainees from Russian prisons. I try to speak directly to the victims. I absolutely fact-check and I verify the information that I receive. This strategy is implemented, pursued, and sustained by coercion, detention, and torture, and it is carried out on a scale that is both widespread and systematic. I think this mandate reports every year to the Human Rights Council, to the other governments, to the other member states in the world, the truth about what's happening with human rights. People ask me sometimes, oh, but this is an anti-Russian mandate because it tells the truth about human rights violations, about the government's wrongdoing. I always answer, this is a mandate for the Russian people. It's a mandate for everybody who is in the Russian Federation and suffered from police brutality, from wrong imprisonment, for violating their rights. Every year I write letters to them asking them to allow me to go to Russia. Every year. I'll do it next year. I've done it this year. Identical letters that they never answer. Justice and accountability inside Russia are virtually unattainable. I deeply regret the Russian Federation's continued non-recognition of this mandate and urge immediate steps to rescind repressive laws and politically motivated prosecutions, release all those arbitrarily detained, and ensures accountability for torture and other human rights violations, because the victims of such brutalities deserve nothing less. I am confident that we can all help to see justice being done. When I heard about the mandate, I thought it's great. Then I didn't think more about it, and I wasn't planning to apply either. Because, I was thinking, do I need, at the end of my career, to be, first of all, we're unpaid experts. So we have to, yes, we don't receive salaries from the UN. We have to be independent from everybody, including from the United Nations. We are not spies, we're international experts. It's the system of the United Nations. We're elected through international competition, so I think every government should respect that, the decision of the Human Rights Council, of their peers. Mr. Vice President, Excellencies, I look forward to our interactive discussion and to your questions. Thank you all for your attention. No, I wasn't surprised that the Russian Federation wasn't in the room because they never are present. In the past 2 years, they haven't been present when I was presenting my reports. On 9th of September, the Russian Foreign Ministry published a statement, official statement, saying that they do not support the mandate on Russia of the Special Rapporteur, and they are not going to cooperate or communicate with this mandate. Amen. Спасибо большое тебе. I mean, it's in a way funny to have, funny or tragic, a government to be so afraid from one woman independent expert and what she has to say. It's day and night work. Human rights defenders, victims, lawyers, they know that they could reach out and call me if something is happening. Of course it affects you. I have very, almost no time to see my friends. I mean, my boyfriend is complaining, obviously, but he's been supportive so far. But it affects you. But I think it's important. There are moments in each person's life when we know that what you're doing it's extremely important. You know what? I believe we're not the story. I'm not the story of persecution. The story are the Russian people. I do have a dream that there will be a different Russia one day in the future. I only hope it's within my lifetime. And I hope one day the role of a special rapporteur on Russia will not be necessary.